I don't know what caring for myself sexually is.
Why do you think that menopause is still misunderstood or even ignored in society, in the working space as well?
Because we have used the label menopause. We have made this all about an ending. So when we start talking about things as an ending, that is an actual verbal cue for people to put it aside. When we're thinking about hormone therapy, it shouldn't be a like, here you go, good luck, see you next year. It should be, okay, what are your symptoms? What's going on in your body? And let's see where we can tailor this to best.
So you created this course. I want to hear what women can expect from it.
So I made a digital course that's just a masterclass on menopause for the woman and wants to understand what's going on in their life. The whole course is meant to give you the tools to feel like, again, this isn't an ending, this is a transition, and how you can understand yourself so that you can and be empowered to live not just quantity of life, but quality of life. Here's nutrition information. Here's physical exercise information. Here's sexual health information. I have it all split up so that you can learn when, where, how you want to, because you are the priority. Yourself and you're putting yourself on the list is what I'm here for. This is a way that you can learn to value yourself and make time for yourself because you're your priority.
Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to speak about women's health, menopause, and what every woman should know. And today our special guest is Sara Berg. Welcome, Sara.
Hello, I'm so honored to be here.
It's a pleasure having you here. Sara, you are a board-certified OBGYN and menopause specialist with over a decade of clinical experience supporting women through every stage of life. You are the founder of Self-Authority, an evidence-based platform helping women understand their bodies with clarity and confidence. You have been featured in leading publications shaping the conversation around women's health and midlife care. Today, you're also a powerful advocate for changing how we approach menopause, not just medically, but in the workplace and in society. And you did not stop there. You created an online course to guide women through questions they have about their own health, giving them answers in a space that often feels confusing and overlooked. You now have become an educational voice available for every household and for women who want to learn more and don't want to settle for what has been told about their body. And I'm so happy to have the opportunity to talk to you and hear how you're rewriting the narratives around femininity. So again, welcome.
Oh, thank you. That was a great, and it made me feel so good. Thank you.
Well, now we want to hear more about you. Tell us about your background. And yes, let's get to know you more.
Well, if we're going to start early and kind of what got me going in healthcare and not only women's health is I'm actually the product of a medical household. So my dad was is a cardiologist, an invasive cardiologist. I don't think he'll ever retire. And I was born at the very end of his training. So literally I am a training baby. So I grew up in a house and my father is the epitome of what you'd want in a physician. He is the person that is out there doing it for good. He wants to do it for his patients. He wants to educate others. He is the lighthouse for me of why I went into healthcare. And so when I grew up watching this person out there really doing the job of caring for others, it inspired me when I thought of what do I want to do? And I was like, well, I want to help others. And I see this as a great way to do it. So I followed his same journey. I went to undergraduate, I went to medical school, and then I found my path a little divergent when I went through my training and said, women's health. That's where I think I belong. I am not going to be an internist. I'm not going to be a pediatrician. I think they are all amazing fields, but women's health is where my distinction needs to be made. And then again, that's where it kind of diverged to my own space.
What drew you to that field? What pivotal moment made you think, all right, this is where I want to go. I want to be sure to, show up for women and learn more about women and support women every way I can.
So I think a lot of people will relate to this story. So what drew me to it was actually having a really bad experience. So my first gynecology appointment, I was not even young. I was in my early 20s, which is too late. I think every woman should start to see a gynecologist a little bit earlier than that. But I was in my early 20s. I was actually about to go to medical school. And I was like, I should, take care of myself. I should do this thing. So I went to the appointment and I had a practitioner that was, the nice way to say it was, a little brisk with me. She was short. She wasn't, you could tell she wasn't interested in learning about me. I felt like I was something to be checked off. And I'm a type A student. I was ready there. I had my information ready. I thought I was coming prepared to have this great conversation and start my care as an adult. And I left and I cried in the car by myself. Like, it was really hard. And so at that point, and I was just starting medical school, I was like, that's not the kind of doctor I want to be. I hadn't experienced that before, and it was really hard. So I thought, well, that kind of care isn't what I want to do. So at first I thought I would not be a gynecologist because I thought that's what it is. And that's not me. That's not where I feel like I fit into medicine. But then when I went into the rotation and I actually started rotating with physicians that I found to be incredibly empathetic and caring, and they were caring for women that were going through that experience like I had had, but doing it so differently and bringing them into the fold and making them feel like they are cared for and thought of. And I thought that's what I want to be. And as a woman, I knew exactly how that felt to have that experience in the negative way. And I wanted to be a change for good in the healthcare space. Like I said, my father was a shining star for that, but I wanted to do that in a place where I felt that I could do the most good. And the bad experience helped me want to make a good experience for others.
Oh, wow. Actually, I had a similar experience with a gynecologist, and I remember hating it. And I would love to know if anyone in the audience went through the same experience. Unfortunately, some people are not meant to do what you're doing. And I'm so glad that you did not get thrown off completely, because along the way, you met real caregivers who made you want to do that and continue and not stay on that, a bad note. So, pretty sad to know that there are people like that out there.
Well, and I think that's even more sad is you're going to get a lot of responses of that's what happened to me. I felt disregarded. I felt, especially in the women's care space. And that's why I do what I do.
We're very vulnerable in that position.
Yes,
right.
And we're putting a lot, I always tell people, you're getting undressed and talking about your feelings. There's no more vulnerable place to be than in a gynecology exam room. And if we don't, on our side of it, take that with the amount of respect it requires, and if we get burnt out and overwhelmed and whatnot, and we bring that to you, might be your one appointment to make a big pivotal change in your life. And we may have ruined that.
Yes, absolutely. Did you have any preconceived notions before you took on that career?
Yes. I think a lot of preconceived notions. I didn't understand, even when I started training, how extensive women's health is, because we put it into a box of reproduction. And we think of women's health only in the box of reproduction, but we are more than our ovaries and uteruses. We are beautifully and wonderfully complicatively made. And when you think about it that way, it is in a very broad field. And so I was thinking, it's going to be this little box I work in, and I'm kind of a specialist. But truly, it's primary care, because I'm taking care of women from, that 12-year-old that's having the first discussion, and maybe they don't feel comfortable talking with their mom or their grandmother at school and they have questions. That was my role, all the way to helping women feel the best they could in their 90s when they may have lost some of their functionality, but they're a human that deserves respect and care. So this is a very broad field. It's not just having babies and taking out uteruses, which is a lot of what we think of when we think there, because we are more than just some of our parts.
Oh, I love your passion. No, really,
you tell I care.
It's really touching. I mean, it's sad that we need to remind women they're there, that they are more than that. And at the same time, it's amazing knowing that there are people who really care, once again, about letting women know about it, and that you strongly feel that way. And you just mentioned that you care for women of all ages. Is there a common denominator when it comes to women's reproductive health? And do you think women are concerned enough about their health?
I think we underestimate how much women care about themselves. And it's a true fact. There is no one more educated on you than you. And so I always told women, if you have an inkling or you have something isn't right, don't just disregard it because someone that isn't you, that doesn't know you, is telling you it's normal. It's okay to say, I know what's normal for me, and to investigate. And I think we are told so often as women to disregard our feelings, that it's, quote, all in our head, that we start to silence ourselves. So I don't think it's we don't care enough. I think we're scared to vocalize it. And so I think by learning as much as you can about yourself, about your physical self, your emotional self, your mental self, you will be able to be an authority and talk passionately and educated on what's going on, so others will take you seriously.
So that's a fact across all ages.
All ages. And you know what's very interesting? The younger generation is a lot more outspoken about this. And I applaud them for this, because I watched this progression from, which I think is beautiful. Each is his own pathway, but my older patients are more deferent. They say, what do you think, doctor? What do you want, doctor? What do you think about my body? Because that's been how they've taught to view medicine, which can be really nice because you're like, they trust me, they believe me. But I'm afraid sometimes that they're leaving out some of their journey because they want to fit into my mold. Then we've got women more in my age group. So we've got the midlife women who are being more vocal, but they're still scared. And they're still told that, you know, someone else may be more of an authority. They don't know enough about themselves and they're not doing it right. And they take that to heart. The younger, they are taking it. They are coming in and saying, right or wrong, from TikTok or wherever, they're saying, this is what I know. I want this. I need this. I am the owner of my body. And that is fabulous. Now, I wish they were getting that education from something more evidence-based than TikTok. And I think that's why doctors are getting on those platforms, because we want to give people that information because that's where they're going for it. But I love the thought process behind it. That saying that this is me, I know me, and you need to learn me to take care of me.
Yeah. Do you think that there is an element, and it's just maybe my own question or opinion, an element of shame sometimes among women that are from the older generations?
Yes, 100%. They were taught not to even know about their body. I mean, that is the generation when I'm doing an exam, and obviously I did 30 plus a day, and that is, I am looking for things that are keeping you healthy. They felt ashamed that I was looking at their vagina, their cervix, their whatnot. They felt shame, and they had often never looked at it or thought about it or questioned it. So I had a large population of women in my older sector that would, only after we had been a patient relationship for a while, would they even tell me, I don't even know what an orgasm is. I don't know what caring for myself sexually is. I don't know. I have been bothered by this for years, but I didn't think it was worth bothering someone with their time. And that's, again, a part of this is I want to empower everybody, because quality, it's not just quantity of life we care about, it's quality of life. And you're not asking those questions, you're not getting the quality of life you deserve.
Wow. That is very powerful. It wasn't advertised, I think, before. It wasn't promoted. It wasn't even, like you mentioned, something that they knew they could care about. And even older millennial, which is my generation, I wasn't aware about what period were. You know, before when I got them, I was like, surprise, surprise. So you're right. We were not speaking about that. And parents did not bring up the conversations. Maybe once again, there is just an overall ambience and environment of shame around that. So
it's things we don't talk about in polite company. It's things that it's the, if you said something out loud, someone would be like, "Girl, we don't talk about that here," and then that puts a stop to it. I mean, if you're told in a public place, not here, then you think this is bad, this is wrong, and you take that and you carry it.
Yes, you think it's wrong. That's the actual word. You think it's wrong. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you also, because we spoke about. This was a little more global, right, in the healthcare system. But we spoke about how many studies have been done on men, but apply to women. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you if you could open the conversation on that topic that I know is actually very triggering for a lot of women out there. And I'm going to follow that question with another one on what you think. Do you think that the healthcare system is improving, or is it still failing women?
So a big question. And I love that we're bringing this up, because I think it's something I didn't know and most people didn't know, because it's not something we're taught. So not until 1993. So in our lifetime, were women required to be included in studies that would affect something a woman put into her own body. And the reasoning behind that, and it is a little paternalistic, but there's the thought process that went behind it, is that they were like, well, if we give women medicine and they could possibly in some realm be pregnant, we could be hurting a fetal development or a baby. So there was a medicine, thalidomide, that was in the 70s that was used to help with people with nausea and help them sleep when they were in early pregnancy, which caused limb deformities. And so they said, we shouldn't do anything on women. And that stopped women being part of the research journey from 70s until the 90s. But the idea is, instead of saying, hey, we should research so that this doesn't happen, they just point blank cut us out. And even in the 90s, when this ruling took hold, it wasn't upheld that well. So they said it in word, but it really wasn't done in action, which also is hard, because you're saying you're including women, but they weren't for a long time still actually walking the walk. And why that's so important is because we know, and there's a really cool saying that I think is great, is women are not small men. We are different. We are biologically we have more hormonal changes inside. So we need to know how things work on all people that medications will be given to. That just makes common sense, because 80% of the medications that get taken off the market are because of how the reaction is in the female patient, because we are not just small.
Really?
Yes, 80%. And that's still today. So that's a learning point, is that if you don't, for the pharmaceutical companies, that's a lot of lost money. So if you do all that research and it looks great in men, but it comes out and that you can't make you shouldn't make a cholesterol medicine or a heart medicine just for men, and you come out and you realize, oh wait, that dosing doesn't work in the female population due to size or due to hormonal changes, that's not good business, and it's not good for the patients or the people that are getting these medications that are having the side effects. And then, because it's not quick to get a medicine off the market. So a lot of people had to be harmed by this for us to turn back the clock. So
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Isn't that horrible?
Well, at the same time, it sounds, with the example you just gave me, you stop experimenting on women in a sense where you want to protect them because something happened. So, obviously, you don't want to get sued or, the repercussions that comes with it. But at the same time, you prescribe, medication that have been tested on men and don't fit women's need.
Yes.
And for that reason, the result that you were trying to avoid to start with is anyway happening. So.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. So it's like, you understand, you can kind of get your hands around why there must have been a quick shift, but it wasn't a thoughtful shift. And once a shift happens in those kind of settings, it takes a really long time to undo the damage. And we know that from any study that's caused change, if I would say science, there's no yes or no. It's like evolving as we learn more. And if a study says you can't do this for this reason, it's likely 20 years from now, we're going to find that maybe that was a little bit harsh. There's some reasons you shouldn't do it, but other reasons why it's okay. And that's how we have to stay a little bit flexible in the science space. And any scientist or a person that says one way is the highway, they are likely going to be proven wrong in 10 to 20 years. So you've got to be really careful about being so black and white in that space.
Right. Do you think that they have made any efforts? Is it improving at the moment?
Yes. And my only concern is that if there's some amazing research has been going on for now in the last decade or so. But if we stop funding it because it has the word woman in it, that could be so harmful, not just for, the outcome, but for all the money that was invested in and all the progress that was made. But if you can't get to that finish line, you can't have the evidence you need to make that next discovery that could change the world for people. So I hope that doesn't play out, and I hope we don't lose all the progress we've been making, because it is important to know how things affect different minorities, different genders, different age groups, different weight groups. If we don't do that research, we are always leaving people out, no matter which way we look.
It's funny you say that, because the first thing we're thinking about, and it's going to be a topic for another time, but, a lot of the funding regarding women goes to fertility. Why? Because it brings a lot of money back, right, in the bank accounts. So when it comes to adapting, like you said, to a minority, this is an extra step. There is no profitable forecast, that you can really predict for your investors. And this is not where the funding goes sometimes. And it's not as popular as fertility. And it's very sad. I wish we could just improve that. But like I said, it's going to be a topic for another time. So one of the questions also I wanted to ask you is, what did you choose menopause? Because this is what you're doing right now. You're an advocate for it. I am, if you can't tell, a passionate advocate. And the reason was that kind of idea of, I got into women's health. You don't realize how broad it is. And then when I started practicing and really knowing my patients and going beyond those first intros, I realized how woefully unprepared I was for that. And how woefully unprepared most physicians coming out are to take care of women in that stage, which makes no sense, because it's midlife for women. So it's not the end of life. This is not a short stage. This is how their body's going to progress from middle of life to the last 1/3 or 1/4 of their life. That's a lot of time we're not getting well educated on in the medical field. So in medical school, I don't think I received a single lecture on it. I could be wrong. It's been a long time, but I do not remember a single lecture. And so that means someone going into cardiovascular health or orthopedic health or any of those other specialties may never receive any education on their patient population that is going through that. And then when I went into my specialty in women's health, I received a lot more education on the delivery of babies and the complications there, and surgeries and general preventative care. But the menopause specific education and thinking about how that linked to the entire body, and again, how we're not just our reproductive organs, it really didn't pan out. And I understand why. I am a product of the generation of physicians that were trained after we had a study that said hormones were bad, which again, we've learned a lot since then. That was 2002 when the study came out, and it shut down people feeling like hormonal therapy could be an option for them. And again, like I said, we can't say black and white. Now we know things that are different. It's not for everyone, but we know that we were woefully misconstruing this data and telling women a story that wasn't true and causing them a lot of quality of life problems. But when I was trained, we were kind of in that like, well, we can't do hormones. I guess we can't really do anything. So we're just going to have to kind of tell them to grit and bear it. And even if that was said, and that's
not a fair way to treat anyone and must let in a healthcare setting. So when I started treating these women and I saw them repeating the same story, it was almost like there was a script for when they really hit the wall. And when they finally were saying, I've had enough, I need help, doctor, do something for me. And I wasn't prepared for it. And that is not okay for me. I felt like I wasn't doing the best I could for my patients. And I was also thinking, how many people like me are out there? And, we're working 60-hour weeks. We're overwhelmed. We have, we're going to rounds. We're doing 24-hour calls. It's not an easy time to then become an expert on another part of women's health. So I said, you know what? There needs to be people that instead of doing all the other things, this becomes our primary focus because women deserve this level of care and thought and this big a portion of their life. So I stepped away and I did my type A research and I took the courses to become a certified practitioner in menopause. And I spent the time researching and knowing as much as I possibly could about where we're going in research so I can give people that heads up, like maybe not now, but pretty soon we're going to have something, people love a good, we are trying, we are caring, we are doing. And so that's why I stepped into menopause, because I knew I wasn't doing the best for that patient population, and they were the ones that felt most disregarded.
Wow. And I think you went even beyond that because you realized that there was a gap. I'm going to say even more than a gap if I can find a better word for that. But the education around menopause is detrimental, is so low that it's detrimental for women overall, right? So I think that you took on a journey there.
Yes. And it's also why, I lived in my medical box. Being a physician takes a lot of effort, so it's hard to look outside of that box. But I always called it my four walls box. I felt very contained. And then now that I'm able to look outside of that box, I'm seeing and I'm meeting these amazing advocates and women that are seeing these issues, and they're trying to take it to the federal level and say, we can do better. We should incentivize to encourage that menopause education makes it all the way down to the medical school level, because, and we'll probably talk a little bit about this, menopause does not just affect our reproductive organs. It affects every part of our body. And because we're on the physician side, woefully uneducated, and because then on the patient side, they aren't informed of this, people feel like they're falling apart. And if you understood what was going on, there's so many things you can do to take this transition in a different way, rather than treating this transition as an ending.
Yes. Well, let's dive into the subject of menopause. Over 50% of women cannot define, and we're going to speak about all three stages, right? Mm-hmm. But we're going to start with the first signs of the reproductive health, getting closer to the menopause stage. Mm-hmm. And it's called perimenopause, right? So 50% of women cannot define perimenopause. What do you wish more patients truly understood about the three stages of menopause before they experience it?
So I think just what you said, understanding what it means, understanding how early the journey is, because we have made a picture. When you think about menopause, you don't think about women that look like us. You are thinking of maybe an elderly woman with completely gray hair, maybe wearing a cute formal outfit. You don't think you're there yet. So you don't think it's something you need to think of. But perimenopause for most women starts in their late 30s, early 40s. So we are not too early to start thinking about what's happening. And even if you're before that, the best thing you can do is get yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared so that you can meet this stage with the grace that you would hopefully give other stages in your life. So perimenopause starts for most people late 30s, early 40s. And it's a stage where you're not done with ovulation, but you're getting pretty close. And so what that means is, I always tell people, you are literally born with every egg you will ever have at birth. And so you've got this basket of eggs that you have. And of course, you don't start dropping those eggs until you hit puberty. So, you know, when you hit puberty and you start having periods, every month you're losing multiple eggs, not just one, multiple. And it's kind of like your body's figuring out which is the coolest one and it sticks with that one. But the other ones drop and they just kind of dissolve and go away. So as you're going through your normal reproductive process, and everyone's different, they go through it differently, but on the average, you go through this process from puberty to where perimenopause hits. It's about 30 years of kind of routine. So you get in the swing of things, you think things are going great, and then perimenopause is when you're low in the bucket. You've only got a few of those eggs left, and it's harder to reach down there to get them. I always think of like the claw machine. You're having to really work. It's not easy like it, you know, was when you could just reach off the top. You have to use the claw to get it. And so when you get to that stage, you may not go through that normal ovulatory cycle every month. And the lower you get, the harder it's going to be to get there. But your brain thinks you should still be doing it. So it's sending you signals saying, hey, get that egg, drop that egg. And your body's saying, oh, I'm working really hard, but it's hard to get it out of here. And so until that basket is empty, you are in perimenopause. And because you can still get those eggs, your hormones are going up, down, all over the place because some months it's trying to do the right thing. Some months it's giving up on you. So I would say if you were to check your hormone levels hour to hour, even during perimenopause, they're all over the place. So it's a very chaotic hormonal space for women. And it's not short. It's not something I always tell people, bite down and, you know, bear it is not going to work because this stage for most women is 4 to 8 years, but there are many women, it's over a decade, especially certain minorities, average. So Black women, it's average 10.8 years.
Oh, so there is a difference between ethnicities.
Yes.
Okay.
So Black women, it's average 10.8 years. Hispanic women, it's more 8.6 years. White women, I think it's 6.8 years. And then of Asian descent, it's, I think, 4.8 years. So
interesting.
It's a spectrum. Now, it's not saying everyone, it's better or worse. It's just saying the average time that they go through this process. And some people will feel nothing. All this chaos is going on and they have a great buffering system. And they're like, perimenopause, who cares? No big deal. Other women will feel every second of it, will be hot flashing and night sweating and not remembering words and having joint aches and feel like their skin's falling off of them. There are so many factors that aren't where we think about the ovaries and just periods being different that happen. Now, okay, so that's going on for a long time. And then when you've gone a full year without a period, for people that have periods and haven't had a hysterectomy and whatnot, that is just the day of menopause. So 12 months after the last cycle, so that we know your hormone levels are we're at their new normal, which is now lower, your menopause, and then the rest of your life is postmenopause. So we spend one third of our life in that postmenopausal time period, but we treat it as like it's the the end.
Is there any, can we expect the symptoms to be reduced after we hit menopause? Or does it increase? Is it the same?
It depends on which symptom, but for most of the symptoms, they usually resolve within 2 years after menopause. That's the average. But those are the hot flashes and especially the brain changes, because when you're not having as much transient, your body kind of gets into the swing of the new area. But we do know that this is a time, and this is what scares a lot of women. Women know that Alzheimer's is more common and dementia is more common in women. They used to say it's just because women lived longer. Now we know it has something to do with this transition time and what's going on during this transition time. So it scares women when they start having these brain changes that are for many people transient or a short time period. But it's scary when you can't remember the name of your boss for a minute, or you can't remember, I always say you're used to having 10 tabs up on your computers and be able to click through them really easily in your mind, and you can't do that anymore. It feels very scary. So we know that for people that have some sort of tendency towards Alzheimer's or dementia, some genetic underlie, that this likely is when that will start to ramp up. But that sounds scary, and it is scary. And what's scary about it is that most women will have these brain changes, but then they get better at the other side of it. But you don't know, though. You don't know, am I going to be that person that's going to now be dementia person? Like now I'm at my transition point, or am I just someone that's got some, hormone shifting, and I'm going to come out the other side and everything's going to be fine on the other side? But
so there is a trial period with a lot of questions. Okay.
And this is why we need research, because we know this, but we don't have a good way of saying, what can we do to slow this for those people? Or how can we give someone the answer? Is this transitional, or is this my new progression? Like those are questions that researchers want to answer. There are questions that I know of because I've been reading and hearing what they're wanting to ask. And if we can't do the research, we'll just have questions with no answers. And that's terrifying.
It is. Because you don't find out what is going on before you're on the other side of it. So,
and a lot of women,
very scary.
Yeah, and you may not see the effects of what's happening during menopause until you're 60. So it's something that might have started in your 40s, and maybe we could learn something where we can do something to change it in our 40s. Because once we get to the point where we're having symptoms, we might be too late, and that's what they're figuring out. But one symptom that universally across the board, and I think people don't talk about it and are scared or feel uncomfortable talking about it, is vaginal symptoms. So the longer you go out, so a lot of these symptoms are because of the transition in hormones. Now, when you lose the estrogen's lower, your vaginal tissue is very fed by that estrogen. And the longer you go without it, the drier it gets, the more irritated it gets. It actually can change the pH in your vagina. So symptoms in the vagina only get worse with time. And this is really why the driver for, I don't know if you read about the black box warning coming off of estrogen in last November.
I haven't.
So there used to be a big scary warning, even in vaginal estrogen, which is the tube you get that kind of looks like a yeast infection cream medicine. It's really icky. It's kind of gross. It's annoying to use, but it's a cream you use just like you'd use a moisturizer on your arm. You moisturize the vaginal area with the estrogen, very low dose of it, and it is a game changer for all women because we all get to the point where the estrogen is low.
The area.
Yes. It's just like giving your body back what it needs in that area, not all over your whole body. Well, that's a great medicine. And they're even considering making it over the counter now. That's how not scary it is. Well, until now, and still in most of the boxes, it has this, you've heard of black box warnings on medicines where they have a big black warning that says, if you take this medicine, you could have all these scary side effects. Well, that was on the vaginal estrogen, which made no sense because it wasn't a medication that went through the whole body. It was almost the same idea as like a lubricant. And so they had this big scary box. So even women that you would say, hey, this would be really beneficial for you lifelong because you're not getting that estrogen back there. And we know how it's going to feel for you long term. It's scary to take a medicine that has a big scary box that says it's going to cause you to have breast cancer and stroke and all these scary things. So they'd pick it up, they'd read the thing and be like, not worth it. Vaginal tissue isn't worth it. And so that is one thing I want to get across. The vaginal issues during menopause don't get better on their own. And it is 100% worth using vaginal estrogen, even if you're not comfortable using estrogen and hormones, other areas of your body. Just a local estrogen there is game changing to how you're going to feel in life because we sit like, you're sitting basically on your vagina all day. And if it's irritated and uncomfortable, all you're going to be thinking back in the back of your head is I'm uncomfortable, I'm irritated, this bothers me. And so it's not only like a quality of life thing, it's going to like affect how your mental game is going. So totally worth it.
Yeah. Dryness and heat sounds like inflammation all day long. So we don't need any of that.
And it's a big increase for UTIs, urinary tract infections. So we know that if you don't use vaginal estrogen, your risk of having urinary tract infections goes up the roof when you're through this menopausal change. And, urinary tract infections are one of the major killers of women in an elder population. So it's also very much so.
Wow. We are getting a lot of value from you here. It's conversations that I never had before. It's actually very scary because I wish more women could have access to that information. But this is why we were talking about it today. But again, once again, you're right. I don't think that a lot of practitioners speak about it or speak about the prevention, what could happen before it happens, or even offer the right solutions for it, rather than it's just how it's supposed to be.
Well, and I have to, on both sides of it, it's also, we've set the physicians up to fail. As a physician that was in the system, you're given 10 to 15 minutes to do all the health things you want to do for a woman. So you are frustrated because you don't have the time to give them, because if you give them more time, you're causing someone else to be behind, and it's the backlog. And then the patients on the other end, I understand they don't even know where to start. They don't know what to ask. If you don't know, you don't have the right questions. So when someone says, hey, what questions do you have? You're like, I used to say, it's like, I feel like a spotlight would go on me if someone asked me in the clinic what questions I have. And even if I had questions, they would just dissolve. And you'd be like, I'm fine, nothing. And then you leave the office, you're like, dang it, I forgot to ask them that.
Yes, it's true. It happens all the time.
This is exactly why, and this is why I made a course, because from both ends, I wanted to make that appointment more productive for the doctors and the patient, because the patient comes in educated and has the question list. And I even write out like, hey, if you're going to your doctor, these are things to write out and have answers for and have them in your hand, so you don't like blinding light forget what's going on because you've written them down. And you have that education where you're like, they're not going to have to teach me the wheel. We're just figuring out which vehicle is the right vehicle to be in. So that makes the education actually something they can manage to give you in the clinic without you feeling like, why didn't anyone ever tell me this?
Yes.
And that's what I know most women feel.
You know what? We were going to speak about your course later in the podcast, but let's speak about it now. So you created this course. I want to hear everything from the moment you created it to what women can expect from it, and where can they find it as well.
Oh, well, I love talking about it. So absolutely. So I made a digital course that's just a masterclass on menopause for the woman or the person that loves the woman and wants to understand what's going on in their life. And the course is aimed at anyone from their 30s to their 60s, anyone that has questions about what's going on. And the reason I made a course is because I understand, and I've seen so many patients, and they'll buy a book about menopause or they'll buy a book about something medical, but it's really boring and dry, and they know they should read it, and it sits on their bedside table and just looks really pretty, but it's hard to delve into something. And I always tell people, this is what I do for a living, and I have had multiple of those books on my bedside table, even though I am obviously very passionate and excited about it. So I get it. So I said, okay, where are most women getting their education? And we know it's the internet, and a lot of it is through visuals. And so I was like, how can I bring women education that will be something that they could be educated on, empowered with, but at the same time be interested and entertained by? Because if it's not interesting, you're not going to remember it. And I am a storyteller at heart, and finding analogies is my jam. So I used all my secret sauce of being an English major and loving to tell stories. And I said, okay, I'm going to use all the analogies I used in the office, the ones that I always got that, you see someone in their eyes, they have that aha moment, like, oh, I understand that now. And so I took all that and I called it my market research on all my amazing patients. And I, put together this course that it goes through, and you can pick and choose what you want to listen to and when, because it's over 6 hours of information, but no one's going to sit down and do 6 hours. It's like, here's your hormone therapy information. Here's your 101 on menopause, the definitions, what's going on, visuals, so you can see what it would look like. Not just me, a talking head, but images to show you what's going on and stories to go with it. Here's what's going on in your brain, so that when you have this moment, instead of feeling like there's something wrong with you, you can be like, oh, this is happening and this is what I can do. Here's nutrition information. Here's physical exercise information. Here's sexual health information. I mean, I have it all split up so that you can learn when, where, how you want to. You can watch it. Or I've had a couple of people tell me that when they're like walking their dog or whatnot, they listen to it just like a podcast, but they pick the thing that's bothering them and they listen to it as they go. So it's information. Once you have it for life, and you can just learn as you go and learn what you want at your pace, how you want to. But the whole course is meant to give you the tools to feel like, again, this isn't an ending, this is a transition, and how you can understand yourself so that you can and be empowered to live not just quantity of life, but quality of life. Because my next hopefully 40 years of my life, 50 years will be the best because I plan to use that education to live a quality life. And that's what I want to give to others, because once you learn, and I would say once you know better, you can do better. And I really believe, like I said, you know your body better than anyone. So once you have the tools to bring it to someone who has, the gatekeeper, the physician, or the practitioner, you are going to have a much better response because you're coming in with the tools that say, I'm not saying something's wrong with me. I'm saying I'm having brain fog because I'm in perimenopause. I would like to try this. What do you think about it? And that's a whole different conversation.
And a lot of women tend to postpone their checkups just because they're caught up with work and life. And it's great. They can actually learn from home.
Yes.
And understand what is happening to them from home, like you mentioned, by listening to it. When a woman follows the course so it's 6 hours you mentioned?
It total, but each section is like maybe 10 to 15 minutes. They're just little bite-sized nuggets to cut it up so that you don't feel overwhelmed by it.
So you mentioned nutrition, information about the female reproductive system, menopause, and what is the other one?
So
and sexual.
It starts with Menopause 101. So like what it is, it's when you feel insecure even asking those beginning questions, because people do, it's giving you the language to understand what's happening and why and what phase you might be in, and kind of giving that relatability. Then I go on and talk about hormone therapy, the information behind it, so that you understand if you should say, hey, maybe it's not for me, or at least know what it is so that you understand if it's a good option. Because for more women than they think, it's a great option, but there's the fear of it that really gets in the way. Then there's a huge section on non-hormonal or other things that you can do that even if you're doing hormonal medicine are great addendums. So it's not, again, we're not a one size fits all. So we've got to figure out different avenues to really feel our best self. And then I go through the kind of why these things are happening in different segments of our body. So heart health, brain health, sexual health. And then if you're going through, like if you've been through breast cancer, so you went through it early, or you have a premature ovarian failure, there are women that are dealing with this at a different time frame and a different way. And understanding their journey, and there's a section on that, understanding their journey so that they can feel like they're not being disregarded. And then because it's such an important part, and I think people undervalue it because we undervalue our time, knowing that what we put and what we do with our body really changes how we feel during this time. So nutrition and exercise, and it's, I feel like the internet has made it seem so complicated. And so people get turned off because they feel like if I don't do these things, I'm not going to be doing the right thing. So I might as well do nothing. And that is someone selling them something. So instead I give them, hey, this is the place we should start. Yes, people can do more, but we try not to do less and know how you can fit it in. And I really do walk people through how they can change their routines to make it work and ways they can think about it so that they don't also give themselves an excuse not to do it. Because we are women. And the reason I named it Self-40 is because we very
let's
rarely,
dive into that too. Let's go.
we rarely put ourselves as a priority. So I named it as a female health priority because women are notorious for putting everyone else on their list, and they
Wait,
don't.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Self-40. So this is the name of the course, or this is the name of your business right
This
now?
is the
Or both?
business, the business. And so it's all
Okay.
under the umbrella of the self is a priority. And I'm thinking of the female self. So my Instagram, my website, my LinkedIn, my everything is self-40, because it's not me you're coming for, it's you, because you are the priority. Yourself, and you're putting yourself on the list, is what I'm here for. So I want you to prioritize yourself and not put yourself off the list, so that you are going to be there for the people you love. And so everyone's like, well, I have to take care of, if you have children, my dogs, my aging parents, the things around the house require me. No one else will do them. So we start lining things up. And then we say, when those things are done, then I can take care of myself. But if you don't take care of yourself, you eventually won't be able to do any of those things. So even if it's for others, even if it's not truly for yourself, which I hope it is, this is a way that you can learn to value yourself on the list and make time for yourself. And I really dive into the ideas of how you can make time for yourself, because you're your priority.
Yes. Oh, I love it. And I will, as usual, link everything in the description down below, so you can access the links to the course, and obviously reach out also to Sara if you have any questions. And I mean, we spoke about all of that, but you're also on stage a lot, right?
Yes. I love making space for women's health to be a priority for others. And I love being in groups of not just women, but of both sexes, because the way we've devalued women, especially in midlife, it's not because, and I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, men have put us down. They don't know. It's not their body. They don't understand. So instead of saying,
they're going through it too, actually.
Yes, there's someone in their life. When we get into these rooms and I explain what's going on, I can, again, the light bulb, I see them thinking of someone that they care about or they love, someone they work with, and they thought they're like, that person is not on their game. This person is burning out. I don't feel like this person can do this job anymore. But once they understand, it's not saying that this is a finale for them in that. It's saying when we understand, we can make changes to support, and then we can have more women in the C-suite, more women continuing their journey in the workforce, more women that are living in their best health, because women live 20% of they live 20% longer than men, but they live that 20% longer in poor health. So we want to make sure we're setting people up for success, not failure, in the last third of their life.
Now that you spoke about all of that, I wanted to jump into the statistics that I found online, right? And this is going to be for women between 45 and 60. So this was really me just going for the numbers that I had in mind, where a woman could be on the spectrum of the three stages, one of the three stages, right? So women make up in the United States 47 of the total US workforce, and women aged between 45 to 60 years old represent roughly 20 to 23%. That's about 17.94 million women. And about the same number of women who are still in that age range, 45 to 60 years old, are not in the workforce, and represent equally about between 12 to 17 million women. So we are a little above 30 million women who are going through one of the three stages of the menopause, right? And might not know about it or need more information about it. And this is the population. This is actually more than the population of Australia.
Wow.
And you mentioned earlier that it's actually a woman every day that is going through. Oh, 1 million, you said. Oh, this is even worse. Okay.
1 million women every day enter this stage.
That is scary. And so my question is, why do you think, knowing those numbers, why do you think that menopause is still misunderstood or even ignored in society? And I'm going to go even deeper by saying in the working space as well.
Because we have used the label menopause, we have made this all about an ending. So menopause actually means the cessation of periods. So we have siphoned this whole journey down to you stopped having periods. So when we start talking about things as an ending, that is an actual verbal cue for people to put it aside. So we've been using this verbal cue to tell people, just like a book, when you get to the ending, you put it aside. We are telling them it's okay to put us to the side. And so I have actually thought a lot about this topic. And there's a lot of countries where instead of using a word and phrasing that means the ending, their phrasing around this life stage is a transition. And I think that's a much better way to frame. So when if we were to change the phrasing to a transition state, we may not have that knee-jerk reaction to be invisible or stop being thought about. So I think there's a cultural...
Sorry, yeah. I just want to say, so when we say transition, we're not saying transition as a woman. We are saying transition from being a woman who can get pregnant and have a child versus a woman who can't anymore. That's the transition.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, I mean like literally a time frame. So we're transitioning from having this ovary cycle going biologically to a time frame when the estrogen levels are now dropping because we are not in the reproductive phase, but we're also transitioning how our brain and our bones and our heart are feeling because they are not being fed by estrogen anymore. Because pretty much every organ in our body is fed by estrogen. So they're relearning, they're educating themselves again on how to do this process. So it's a phase. So phase might be a better word. A phase we're going through to get to a new standard of being the female self. So I think that, I like that way better. I think that's a great sticking point. So yes. And so I think culturally, if we think about it instead of an end, but a phase, we may not turn away from women like we do now. And I think that could be something it's a curiosity to me if that would make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I want to keep you a little longer here because we are getting to the end of the podcast, but I have one more question. So between the prescriptions that women are getting for menopause in general, and this is something I read about this morning, but I really wanted to touch on that because a lot of more women are aware and are actually bringing up the conversation to their practitioner. It's about getting prescribed estrogen. A lot has to do with, I hear a controversial topic between solving the problem with progesterone and getting the testosterone and getting over, which is the real problem to tackle first. And they're getting prescribed a lot of estrogens, which make them feel worse. And I wanted to ask you if there was any truth to that, if there is if there are steps to take first before to tackle the estrogen issue, or if there is no issue at all with estrogens.
That is a great question. I think it goes back to the idea of some people think there's a one size fits all. And you're exactly right. We're not a one size fits all. So there can't be some series that we're all expected to work and feel better in. And even I found if you were to give someone one version of a medication from one pharmacy, from one pharmaceutical company, and this exact same one from a different one, women will feel differently on each one, or one will work for one and one will work for another. And that's why I always say it's a very trial and error. So when we're thinking about hormone therapy, it shouldn't be here you go, good luck, see you next year. It should be okay, what are your symptoms? What's going on in your body? And let's see where we can tailor this to best and know that it's a starting point, because you are not your sister who is not your best friend. So even though this one way worked for them, don't be scared if it doesn't work for you, or don't be scared if someone said that didn't work for me and we try it, because you are not them. But because estrogen is really the one that goes to all the body parts, that's usually why we talk about it first. But the reason, and it's usually the one that makes the most change for people on symptoms, but they've got to find the right version of it because there's multiple versions to maybe get the most benefit. And they have to make sure that they don't have any sneaky spots that make them a bad candidate for it. And again, I go through all this in the course because it is so important to know who you are and to bring that self to the physician. But progesterone can be really helpful in a lot of ways. One of them is just to protect your uterus, if you have one, from getting, if you have too much estrogen, it's going to fill up with the, the lining's going to get thicker and thicker, and it can increase your risk of getting uterus cancer if you don't have the progesterone to balance it out. So for a lot of women, the only reason they might need a progesterone is to balance that out. But for some women, progesterone can help them with sleep. But that's been the most we've seen in the research that's been done. That's been the most where we see it's been the most beneficial for women. So the sleep issue or balancing the estrogen. And testosterone is another, obviously, sex hormone. It is something that women have. And so whenever someone says, oh, that's a male hormone, no, we've always had it. And it progressively, unlike estrogen and progesterone that just kind of do this weird roller coaster and then dive bomb during this time, testosterone's been doing this slow escalator down since your 30s. It just slowly goes down. It does this weird buffer in your 70s and 80s. We don't know why. Again, would love to have more research, but it just kind of goes down until that point. So it's not a drastic change. So it's not something we necessarily even have to think of as something you do during menopause hormone therapy because it's on its own timeline. And it's definitely an option. And it's been found, again, there's no magic bullet. People will try to say, oh, it's going to build your muscles. It's going to make your brain work. They have tried to prove this in data. They can't prove any of those things. I definitely hear about it. So I have no problem with the idea of it. There's just no evidence say that that's a universal. We can say maybe it does in some women and doesn't in other women, but we don't know why. But the one thing it is 100% been proven to help is when we have low sex drive and we don't have another reason for it. And I would say there's lots of reasons, like you don't like your husband anymore because you've been hot flashing and he's not nice and you're having all these like angry conversations, or you haven't slept in 2 weeks. So of course, sex is not something you're thinking about because sleep is more important than sex. So if we've filtered out all those other reasons why your sex drive has gone down and we can't find another reason, testosterone can be a really good Band-Aid for that. So again, they all have very cool, special ways they work, but it's not there's no like, do this, then do this, then do this. Yes. And if anyone tells you that, then you might want to try to find someone else to help you start the process.
Oh, thank you for enlightening us on that. I actually read it online. So I feel that there is a lot of misinformation, but like with everything else, unfortunately, when you have no clue what could be true or not, it can be misleading. So you spoke about right? You spoke about right now uterus cancer, and one of my questions before we close this podcast that I wish we could actually stay hours talking together. It's if there is one thing I hope everybody takes away from this conversation is that you want to know more. There is a lot you didn't know, and you want to know more now.
Yes.
My question was, looking at women's reproductive health in 2026, what does a realistic approach to risk assessments and preventive care looks like?
I know it's going to sound like I'm repeating the same thing, but it's all about individualizing. It's about and that's what 2026 I hope is about. It's about realizing that we are not cookie cutter. It's about realizing that your genetics, your background, everything about you makes you totally unique. So you having individualized care is the most important part of this. And understanding,
that's very good advice.
It is, and understanding that it's care for your whole self. Women, again, are not just our uterus and ovaries. We are a heart, we are bones, we are brain, we are self. So we need to be thinking about women's health as helping the whole woman and understanding where our treatment plans fall into that. We've done this in medicine, and I understand why. We have boxed it off. There's a cardiologist or a heart doctor. There's a bone doctor. There's a kidney doctor. And then they subspecialize. So it's almost like we get into our boxes of medicine, and it makes it really hard to pull back and remember the whole person. And I hope that instead of moving into these small boxes, we pull back and remember that we are all an interconnected person. The heart is connected to the other parts of the body as well. And so we can't take one part of ourselves out of context. We've got to keep it in that context. So personalizing and keeping the whole person in frame is what I think 2026 should be all about.
Yes. I'm all for that. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And my last question for you is, what is next for you? You have an incredible personality, a lot of passion, and I want the audience to be able to follow you and follow your work. So what exciting new projects are you excited about? And once again, what is next for you?
So it's actually a big next. So I am launching my Menopause at Work, and it's for the exact reason we were talking about. I want to bring this information to the workplace because you were listing off the stats that are so important. This 45 to 60-year-old age frame is a huge part of our workforce. And actually, it's the fastest growing population of the workforce. So there will be more and more women in this phase. And if we don't make changes in the workplace, because we spend what I think is too much of our life at work, but we spend a lot of our life at work. And if you feel embarrassed or ashamed, or you feel like you can't bring this part of yourself to work, then things are going to break down. And that's why I think there's a big miscommunication about the idea of women during this phase burning out or leaving. And the statistics, like you said, they are hard to hear. 1 in 5 women will leave their job because they think it's a them problem. And companies are losing $1.8 billion in absences just because women don't know what's going on. So they're not being able to come in. If they didn't sleep all night, they can't come in. They have headaches are a part of this. There are so many different things. So if we can bring this information to the whole workforce, not just the population going through it, but the ones that maybe their managers, their leaders, or the people that are deciding if they get the promotion, we are going to be able to keep more women in the workforce and keep them feeling healthy and safe and sane. B, we're going to have more people promoted. So the more of you like in the C-suite, the more women that are the leaders of the company, the more this understanding will trickle down. So in my head, this is a leadership pipeline that women need and organizations need, because the companies that have women in leadership versus the companies that don't have women in leadership, they have 30% more profit. So women in leadership roles is a benefit for the women that want to retain their job, keep their job, but it's also a benefit for the business world because we have new innovative ways of thinking that haven't reached that place in the workforce because possibly we've been cut down by what's going on biology-wise that we didn't have a name for. So I am very passionate about this idea, and I've started to work in organizations that value and care about their female employees and think, hey, that makes sense. We didn't want to lose those people, and now we may know why. And it's a program that can educate every level of the workforce in what's the purpose for them. And so it's not just to learn about women and their reproductive lifespan. It's learning what's going on in the context of how it affects them at work at every level. And my side benefit is health equity. We've talked about a little bit, like bringing healthcare to as many people as possible. We a lot of times get our healthcare information and insurances from our employer. So this is a sneaky way for me to help as many women as possible because they get it from the workplace anyway. So I'm just bringing it to them more quickly and easily.
Yes. Well, listen, with those numbers, I think you are going to convince a lot of companies. Because when it touches their wallet, they do understand and speak the same language.
Yes, and it is a benefit on both sides. It's going to help the women, and I promise it's a corporate benefit. After all the research studies that have been done, Bank of America, Mayo, Deloitte, McKinsey, Lean In, so many just consulting, looking at a problem, have said over and over, this is a problem that's a corporate problem. And we read the research and we go, that's interesting, but nothing changes. So when we make the changes, we have the data to show there's benefit to be made.
Well, that's very exciting. Yeah. And we have gained a lot of value once again, thanks to you in this podcast. You have been an amazing guest, and I feel very honored that you shared the space today with us. Thank you so much for coming today, Sara. It was once again an incredible experience.
No, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I am so honored and excited to be here and to talk with all the women that are out there that didn't even realize that this was something going on with them. And I hope you can make the space to reach out to me, learn from Self-40, and keep tuning in to Sara, because she's bringing in amazing people to talk with you.
Thank you so much. And again, I will be linking all the important conversation we had today, the links about the course, the links about reaching out to Sara in the description down below. So please make sure to read it and take action, because this is what's going to change your life. These conversations are meant for you to not only learn, but also maybe self-reflect on how to improve, your life and yourself overall. So amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Sara.
Thank you.